Hello and welcome back to Rams Talk Podcast. And we're here today after Derby's 1-0 defeat to Preston. Apparently, I only come on when we lose. That's how it feels at the moment. I only come on when we lose. But here we are. It wasn't the best game. It wasn't the best result. I think it's not been a very good couple of days for Derby. You can see the morale's kind of dropped off a cliff a little bit. But we've got lots to talk about today. I think Eustace will have a lot that he'll be thinking about as well. So it'll be interesting to delve deep into everything that happened in yesterday's game. So joining me today to talk all about it, Mr. Microphone Volume Adjustment Man himself, Adam Titley. How you doing, pal?
I'm doing well. Hopefully everybody can hear me, because I think I must speak too quietly and I've just been faffing with my microphone. But yeah, that's how interesting yesterday was. It was a pretty flat game. I think most of us have probably underestimated Preston. They've had a good start to the season. I don't think it will be a loss that we look back upon too badly, but hopefully we can move on quite quickly from it.
Exactly. And also, we've got Derby. Oh no, we don't. It's Callum Boocock. How you doing, Cal? You right, mate?
I'm good. Yeah, Ajimang, don't like him. But yeah, no, all good. It's been a very hectic Sunday for me, but it's good to. I would say it was good to talk about Derby, but then, the good thing is I didn't have managed to catch the game. I watched it in full, so I'm going to give a justified opinion.
Great stuff. And you may have noticed, if you're watching on video, my room looks a little bit different. It's because I've bought a house, which is why I wasn't here last week, which is typical because we actually won. So, there's that. But right, let's kick it off and let's go right to the start of that game now. It's now an hour and 15 before, isn't it? We get the team news. Hour and 15 minutes before we get that team news. And it's a bit weird. I mean, we looked at it and a lot of people asked, are we going to play a back four? Are we going to play a back five? I think people thought we'd go for it a little bit more. We set up exactly the same, Adam, didn't we, as we did at West Brom. I'm not sure if that was the right thing to do. I think, post-match, a lot of people were saying that wasn't the right thing to do. How did you see it?
I think before, too concerned with how we set up. I thought, right, we'll play it the same way as we played West Brom. And as I mentioned at the start, I think Preston have had a decent start to the season. But knowing how Preston set up in the way that if they get the first goal and they'll sit on it and frustrate teams, we're probably a little bit too defensively minded. I think away from home, that setup is perfectly fine, happy with it. Away at Ipswich, away at West Brom against these quality opposition. But when we're at home, I just want us to be a little bit more adventurous. I think the attacking plays that we had on the pitch, could definitely reward us with some goals. But we're kind of relying on, I think anyway, Bobby Clark having a good game and being able to create something in that forward area, because Carlton Morris is a player who likes to knock the ball down or be on the end of a chance to finish it. Brereton Diaz, I think I'm surprised that we've thrown him in 2 games in a row now, when I think off the back of, I think it's fair to say, a criticised performance from Chile in the international break, and the fact that he's not really had too many runs of games for Southampton. And speaking to a Sheffield United fan before we signed him, was that he's a confidence player. So to put straight away when he's probably not at the top of his confidence, I think the performances we've seen from him is only to be expected. I think we were a little bit too defensive before the game, and I think we saw that in the first half, definitely.
Yeah, we really did. I mean, taking a look at the comments, please, if you're watching live, keep getting your comments in, because it's always interesting to read different points of view. Ryan, Jono, Dylan and David Clarkson all saying the same thing. They're saying, that 3 at the back / 5 at the back, that tactic just didn't feel quite right. And Cal, I mean, I know Adam feels the same way. It just felt a little bit too defensive for a home game.
Yeah, look, I think tactically, Eustace has been pretty spot on in terms of what we've seen of him from last season, and obviously the start of this season. There's been some things that supporters watching on have kind of questioned, but I think before the game, what we wanted to see at home was front foot football and a team with the players that we've recruited being happy to be on the ball and actually take control of possession and move us up the pitch and try and be on the front foot. I think Preston are a decent team, so I think that would have been a little bit difficult. I think people look at Preston as a club and there's a name and think, oh, that's quite an easy fixture. They've had a decent start to the season, beaten Leicester, beaten Ipswich. They're not a team that could be pushed over, and obviously we saw that yesterday. But I do think that the setting up with the three at the back away from home gets exactly what it says on the tin, but I think at home it just restricts us. We just look really one-dimensional, and obviously we'll go to talk about it a little bit later. But I think we just look really dimensional and really lacking ideas trying to get the ball up the pitch.
Yeah, and that was one of the difficult things, and like you say, we will get onto that further down the line in the episode. Is that second half, but we have to go and look at that first half, Adam, because I've got the team up in front of me, and on paper, that looks like a decent side, right? You've got Fozzie, you've got Sanderson playing the ball out to the wide players in Elder and Johnston. I thought Johnston was actually pretty impressive throughout the game. His delivery is fantastic. Adams and Travis, probably not very exciting in front of them, but Brereton Diaz, Clark and Morris as a three. On paper, that's a pretty solid three, but in actual action, it just didn't feel like that. The passing was very slow. There were so many times when Sanderson picked up the ball and just took forever to play the ball. It was like he took 3-4 touches before playing it out to Johnston or giving the ball away. And why was that, do you think? Why were the players playing in that way?
I think we've got quite a slow build up with that starting 11, in the fact that it's not going to be lightning quick and we're going to be 3 passes and we'll be in on goal. And Sanderson's a better ball playing defender than I think the rest of the back three, so it makes sense that he saw most of the ball when in that position. But when I look at that starting 11, it's who's going to carry that ball from midfield or deeper in midfield forward to them forward areas, because I've not really seen anything from that midfield to indicate that can do that. And if we want to create chances, especially at home and where you'd expect to have more possession, then we're not going to do that with that team starting. I think Travis and Adams in that midfield, I'm struggling to see where that technical ability to be able to open up the game from midfield and take it forward is going to come from. And Johnston and Elder are probably more defensively minded than attacking when they're the out wide players. I think obviously both will move up and down the pitch, but I would say Callum Elder's a better defender than he is attacker when going forward. And Johnston has a good delivery into the box, but even then I'd say the same. And so it's reliant on that Diaz and Clark to give Morris the service. And I think Clark can do that, but we've seen a little bit of a drop-off since that Burnley away performance where I think he was superb and really was able to do that. But yeah, I think for me, Adams and Travis spent most of the game playing the ball back to the centre-backs or in defensive positions, and there wasn't that willingness to drive the ball forward or maybe that confidence to take a risk. And I think that summed up that first half. It just lacked that confidence to take a risk in maybe defensive areas where you do need to turn and play the ball forward. I think it's just far too reserved. And I think there was a few shouts around me of it's boring. And it was because we didn't take a risk, and you have to take a risk, and Preston did and scored a great goal.
Well, that's it. And looking at that Derby team, I think you're right. I think Elder did not really go forward in that first half. I thought he had quite a poor game. Johnston, I think, went forward when he could, but again, he wasn't getting the ball when he did go forwards. And the whole thing when you play a back three is that your 2 wing backs are meant to provide you width and get up and down the pitch. That's how I see it. They've got to get up and down that pitch and create chances, put balls into the box and be that width. Now, Derby's wing backs don't seem to do that at the minute, and they didn't do that. I understood it against West Brom, right? West Brom, really good side. But the wing backs were playing very, very defensively, and that left Brereton Diaz, Clark with so much to do. And I really felt sorry for the two of them, to be honest. I know Brereton Diaz didn't have his best game, but I thought he was quite isolated out there. And Bobby Clark, his movement is brilliant, by the way. His work rate is fantastic, but it's just not coming off for him because he just not got the players around him. Every time we got a few players into an attacking position, I thought we actually looked quite dangerous. When we knocked the ball around, had some nice interplay, we actually looked like a pretty good side. It's just the problem was that was few and far between. And Callum, it's been mentioned already, and it's been mentioned quite a lot in the comments as well about that Ibu Adams and Travis midfield. Nick says he thought Travis was great yesterday. I agree. I think he had a really good game. But what we did see was a little bit of a limitation, right? Travis kept trying to play those balls into Morris's feet and Adjumang when he came on. I don't think he passed to anyone else but Adjumang when Adjumang came on. But Ibu Adams struggled on the ball a little bit. I thought he did, all right defensively, but he struggled on the ball again. It just seems a problem area, doesn't it, Cal, at the moment? And I don't know what option, have you got any ideas what option we could do in that holding midfield position to sort of change it up a bit and help with that transitional phase?
Well, the obvious answer would probably be to play David Ozo rather than Ibu Adams, but then I think Ozo at the moment is kind of not in the bad books of Eustace, but he's been 2 unused substitution in 2 fixtures now, and he's probably not lost a bit of credit in the bank since, obviously, with that last-minute penalty. But I think it's just the justification on a former captain taking him out and playing a young defensive midfielder who's still learning his trade. It's kind of, what would that say to Ibu Adams? But I think at the moment when Ibu Adams is really, like you said, struggling, especially when we need him to on the ball, you can see it clearly see his limitations. When we're trying to get the ball back, he's brilliant, and he makes some great sliding tackles. He wins the ball back, but then if he wins the ball back himself, it's then sometimes he loses it straight away, and the onus is so on Travis then to do that ball playing mid-central defensive midfield role, which he's okay at, but he's not the best. That's not his game. You need someone who can kind of pivot off him and is comfortable being on the ball. And I think David Ozo is that, but obviously Eustace clearly at the moment doesn't have him in his starting 11 books. It might obviously come into fruition if Ibu Adams continues to struggle on the ball. But when we play away, we're not going to have the ball, by the looks of it. So Ibu Adams, but Ibu Adams kind of then fits perfectly, doesn't he? So it's hard. It is hard. I think the answer is sat there on the bench, but I don't think he's going to get a start in probably the next couple of games, in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't think he did himself any favours, did he, with that silly tackle at Ipswich? I bet he regrets that quite a lot now. But it is what it is. It's football, isn't it? You know, that happens, and he'll get his opportunity. You know, he'll get his chance again. He's just got to make sure he's ready to take it when he does come back in. We've got a comment from Richard Greaves asking about my results today. 2 wins, Richard. 2 wins. Never in doubt, mate. Never in doubt. Easy. Easy. This football and football management is dead easy, Richard. Honestly, you should try it. Now let's talk about their goal, right? We have to talk about it because I think that summed up exactly the problem with Derby at the moment. Now, there's been a few times this season when we've conceded goals and you've sort of looked at it and gone, oh, I can't believe we've let that in. You know what I mean? Where they've had a free shot, they've had a free chance, Stoke away, right? Lewis Baker, edge of the box, Caden Jackson decides, don't fancy it, I'll let him shoot. And he scores, puts it in the bottom corner, and we end up going on to lose the game. There's a couple of others, which I've completely forgotten. I should have written them down. But also, yesterday, another perfect example. We gave a player of Divine's quality so much time on the ball. Elder thought about going, didn't go. The 3 centre-backs were far too deep. Like, that gap between the 3 centre-backs and the actual players on the ball was huge. And he just smacks it top corner. I mean, it's a great goal, isn't it? It's a great finish, and I can see why he celebrated like that. I think I would if I scored that in Sunday League. But it was some finish. But, Adam, that summed up Derby's problem, didn't it? We were too passive. We lacked a bit of confidence, and it really just didn't seem like we were really at it in the game.
No, I think that's exactly it. I mean, it's a great goal, one that I think as soon as it's left his foot, it's unsavable when it's come off the post and gone in like that. But it summed up how Preston were willing to change their approach up when they came forward, which I think caught us out as well, in the fact that you mentioned how the 3 centre-backs were too deep. Elder pulls away to go out wide, even though if he pulls away any further, he's going to end up in the south stand with how quickly we were tracking back on the edge of our own area. But it showed that Preston had that willingness to change their approach when coming forward. And when you look at the stats, they pretty much matched that. They shot from inside the box, outside the box. There wasn't one direct way that they were going to play. And it rewarded them with a goal. And Derby, I think in contrast to that, we're very much reliant on a moment of individual brilliance from either Adjumang or someone else to get into a position to have a goal-scoring opportunity. And talking about that goal defensively, it was preventable, especially with the way that's just been so easily cut inside to the edgy area in a perfect striking position. My question is, should one of the centre-backs step out? Probably.
100%. 100%.
Whereas,
Yeah.
I don't know whether he's caught in between the midfield and the defence when considering we're playing Ebou and Travis, who are probably decently defensive-minded. My question then comes, where are they? But yeah, a goal that's preventable, decision-making in that defensive area. Communication, I think, defensively has been something that we've lacked all season. And once again, it's there. Either Forsyth or Clark's got to tell Elder to press the man instead of just letting Elder go back to his rightful position where he should be marking.
Well, I think he had an overlapping player, I think, to be fair to Elder.
Well, exactly
but still,
that.
there's cover, though. There's cover. If
communication
But I think it's communication, though, isn't it?
Yeah, they've got to talk to each other. Yeah, I agree.
Far too many times it's dropped to the edge of the area, Stoke away, like you mentioned, and it's been an opportunity for a team to score against us. I think Burnley away was similar, where I think defensively communication could have been better. But I think it's in them key moments where championship teams will punish you. And I think the way that we're playing, it will just throw up a mixed bag of results depending on who you're playing, whether you play a good team away from home and you're able to pick up a point or a win, like we saw with Ipswich and West Brom, or then when against Bristol City, it was a pretty flat game, and against Preston, a moment of brilliance has won the game. It's predictable the way we'll play, but unpredictable the outcome, I think, based on who we're playing. And it's a risky game to play when you look at how many points we've accumulated. But yeah, I think defensively about the goal, communication-wise, I think we're lacking someone, who's a leader in that back five, if I'm going to be completely honest, especially in that centre-back position, because nobody seems to be taking on that onus, and we need someone who's a leader.
Yeah, I mean, you could possibly be right. It's a difficult one, isn't it? Because you think with the experience we had at the back, I mean, Dion Sanderson's an ex-captain. Matt Clark has probably been a captain at some point, and Craig Forsyth's worn the armband a few times too. And you've got three players there that are pretty experienced at this level. You'd expect them. You'd really expect them to be the players that are, giving the shouts. But yeah, you're right. There was just a moment where it just felt like there wasn't that leadership there. But we've seen that a few times this season, haven't we? How many goals have we conceded? There was one with Danny Bart, if I remember rightly, where he was about 3 yards deeper than everyone else, and they put the ball in and score. And it seems to be happening quite a lot, which didn't happen last year. Are we missing Nat Phillips? Probably. Are we missing Sondra Langer? So 100%. So, yeah, it's definitely an interesting point. But Callum, I've got a stat here that I didn't actually verify, so I'm saying this as something I've read on the internet. But apparently, we've only won 3 games at home out of 10 under Eustace in the league. Now, I did the maths in my mind. I think that is actually right. I think that is genuinely right. I'm not surprised by that. I think away from home, we look genuinely pretty strong, right? We don't usually take a bit of a battering. And we sit quite deep. We hit teams on the break quite nicely. But at home, we just don't seem to have that extra edge. At home, you kind of expect your team to dominate the game a bit more. And I don't mean just pass it around your back three. I mean, impose yourself on the opposition. It doesn't feel like that at Derby, does it, at the minute?
No, but we saw what he can do at Blackburn. I mean, when we saw it first time when we played their first game of last season, and they took us to the cleaners really to work with, especially with the substitutions and stuff. And I think that's what we will eventually see at home at Pride Park. I think the way Eustace wants to play probably is still in the transition period at the moment. I think he's still got 13 odd players who are still trying to gel, still trying to find the combinations. He's still trying to find the formula. He's come out and openly said that the formation that did not work in the first half post game, and so that he's recognising obviously the limitations to certain things away from home, at home. And I trust him and the entire coaching staff, because we've seen it last season, to find the right combination. And I think a lot of it at home is obviously the pressure of having the ball, and we need players who are comfortable on the ball. I think we've got players who can have that, who have got that ability. I think Johnston on the ball is really, really good. I think Travis, when he's combined with a partner who can do the same level of ability on the ball, might also have that. You've got Clark, Bobby Clark, who's comfortable on the ball. You've got Brewster, Brereton Diaz. Do you know what I mean? The list is going on and on and on. Whereas last season, no one was really comfortable in the ball, and we had to just set up and be resolute and try and catch people on the counter and just hope we could nick something, which And I think a lot of it is we're just trying to really find that combination. I think as players come back, I think Bet could be something massive on the left because it just means that we're not going so far down the right all the time. I think, in my opinion, Ozo should start over Adams to give Travis a bit of help. And I think obviously when Brewster comes back with Ajimang and with Morris, I think there's some good combinations that could be had. But I think that's it. It's the combinations of building, and we're still very, very early on into a transition period with 13 odd players leaving and 13 players coming in. It's going to be a slow start. I think it's a slower start than what people had hoped, and I think we've just got to be patient, and it will slowly build and come.
Well, I hope you're right, and everyone's doing a bit of analysis at the minute. Jim in the comments has said we've got the worst shots at goal in the division. Is that correct? Adam's messaged me saying we've averaged 2 shots on target so far for each match. I look at my other screen and I also have the exact same stat up, so it's good to see we're all looking at the same thing. Yeah, we're joint bottom for shots on target per game with 2.2. Although we've got a conversion rate of 19.1%, which is pretty obscene, actually.
That's quite high, I think.
That's very high, and I'd probably say arguably unsustainably high. And that's a bit of a worry, isn't it, that we're not getting the shots out at the moment. Just taking a quick look at the comments. Hello to Corey and Matt as well. Thank you for your nice comments about the pod. But yeah, I think Lee Radford, has made a good point, saying we probably should have brought a quality 8 in. I think you're right. I think you're probably right. We've signed a couple of number 6s, haven't we? We didn't bring in a number 8, which was a little bit of a shame. But let's move on to that second half now, right? Because things changed. Eustace went to back 4, Elder came off, and Derby started to create a few chances. We started to get in some decent positions, and that only got better when a certain American that Jamie Page hates with all his heart, called Patrick Ajimang, came on. And I thought he made a massive difference. Immediately. The comments were already saying about, he rolled that defender. I've watched that chance back. It's a great bit of football. He takes the defender completely out of the game. I think he's actually quite unlucky because it's a really good save by Iverson in goal. Probably a better save than he might have been given credit for. But he looks dangerous, Adam, doesn't he? He adds something different. He's big, he's strong, he's pretty decent in the air, but he's actually pretty good on the floor too. What did you think of Big Pat?
Yeah, I think I agree with what you said. He made a massive, massive difference. I was a little bit nervous when he come on at 45, when thinking about he's only just come back from injury, and that's a long 45 minutes when we're chasing the game. But whenever he received the ball, he looked like he wanted to drive into the box to create himself an opportunity. I think there was a couple of times when he first come on that he gave the ball away, maybe holding on to it for too long, but it didn't seem to faze him at all. And them opportunities he created, like you mentioned, the one where he was able to turn the defender, it was a really good opportunity. But like you said, Iverson put in a really, really good performance, actually. Anything that we had on target, he seemed to be able to save. And Ajimang created a couple of good opportunities, and I think on another day he might have scored and got his opening goal for us. But yeah, I thought he made a massive difference. I think on the flip side of him coming on, I think when Morris had to drop in the 10, it made him completely ineffective, unfortunately, because both players have similar styles of playing. The fact that both are good in the air and can probably knock it on, whereas they're both trying to do that for each other, which cancelled it out a little bit. But Ajimang was brilliant. Whether I'd rush to start him in another game, I'm not too sure. I'm concerned that we don't want to rush players back too quickly, especially when he's not played football for a while. But I think he made a massive difference, and he's going to be an exciting player. And I just hope that he keeps that drive and that willingness to try something, because I think that's really refreshing seeing. Also, it's got such a massive potential as well.
It's only a hernia, mate. He's fine. He'll be fine. Get him back in. Get him started. I want to see him at Wrexham next week. Some of the comments are saying, well, Vic Singh, if you recognise that name, I've not really heard of him before, but he says that he's quite an unorthodox player and he's hard to defend against. I agree with that. That's what I was trying to say before, is that he's not a normal footballer, is he? Carlton Morris, you know what you're going to get, don't you? You put a ball in, he'll take it down on his chest, he'll lay off. He's not going to dribble with it. He's not going to run with the ball, and Ajimang can do that. He's probably better with the ball at his feet than he is with the ball in the air, which is weird when he's like 6'5". And Lee even says he was the only positive. I think he really was a real positive. But Adam, you mentioned Iverson's performance. I think Jakob Fidel Zetterstrom deserves some credit as well. I thought he had a really good game. I think his kicking is like a million times better as well this season.
It's getting better.
I don't know if anyone's noticed. Like, some of his distribution has been fantastic, which is nice. It's nice, isn't it, to have a little bit more confidence. He seems to have got his confidence back, which is good. But Cal, Patrick Agyemang, it's a good point that Adam made there, that Carlton Morris dropped deeper. We went to that 4-2-3-1 kind of formation. And I don't think Morris looked quite right. He was. I don't really think he knew what he was doing, if I'm honest. Usually you play someone in the 10 like a Bobby Clark or something like that, and instead we had a massive 6'3" striker playing in there. How do you see it working with Agyemang and Morris and players like that? How can you see John Eustace putting the team together to fit all of his best players in?
Well, we thought when we were talking about him pre his arrival and while we were waiting for him to get back fit, was obviously would he play just a straight 2 number 9 formation, 4-4-2, 4-2-2, or anything like that, and try and work off each other. But I think that the idea was there, because I think what they're looking. The idea with Morris was that he'd win the flick-ons, and you've got then an Agyemang then to run onto them, because that was one thing that we didn't have in the first half, is that Morris would try and win all the flick-ons and there'd be no one around them. So I think that was the idea. But like you said, because we were on the ball more and on the front foot, which was obviously great, Travis was then trying to play it into Morris, who's the 10, and he's not the number 10 where he's going to then ball roll someone. That was, funny enough, an Agyemang, number 7, who then ball rolls someone. So, but yeah, I think it'll be interesting. I think, in my opinion, if you're going to do it, do them as a straight two up top, but 2 sets of number 9s, and work off their traits, work off each other in that way. But if you're going to go down the 4-2-3-1 route, then you've got to play a player like a Brewster or a Clark or a Vyman in that 10, who can link up the play with your CDMs and give the number 9 something to play off. Because, like you said, Morris just became less ineffective, and like you said, I don't think he really knew what to do. He kind of was just in the way a lot when you're trying to interlink play. But I think he's still he was still effective when the ball was lumped up from Zetterstrom, or crosses came in from Johnston. But other than that, he kind of petered out, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. And Adam, how would you fit them all in? So if you're playing that front 2, if you're playing Morris and Agyemang in a front 2, how would you set the team up?
I think that's an hard question, but
that's why I asked.
If we're going to
we only ask the hard questions on here, mate.
If we're going to play both of them up top together, then I think we need someone in behind who's going to be there for the knockdowns, because I think at West Brom you could see Morris telling Agyemang that Morris was going to touch it down, and basically for Agyemang to get ready to run on some loose balls and hopefully create some opportunities. And I think we need that Bobby Clark or that Diaz in behind. Now, obviously, Diaz is more of a wide player who comes inside, but I think Bobby Clark could sit in behind them, and I think it'd be key that we have someone else sort of picking up the loose balls or playing a little bit of creativity, because not everything can be a ball in the air and hoping that one of them knocks it down and the other one runs onto it. That's far too predictable. I think the key would be whoever's in behind creating those chances and seeing how well they can both link up. Carlton Morris has played in this division for a number of seasons and has the knowledge on how to beat defenders in this division and the little touches around. But also Agyemang is coming in, new start in the Championship. We need someone who can unlock those defences for them, not that they're relying to do it themselves. And I think this start of the season, it's sort of the players, like we saw against Preston, Agyemang had to create the chances himself. There was no one in behind doing that. And I think the onus isn't on the strikers to create the opportunities. I think it needs to be on the player who's in behind or whoever's out wide. So if we do start both of them up front, I think it's key that we've got someone in behind who knows their game and can sort of operate playing off both of them. That would be what I'd say.
Yeah, good non-answer there, Adam. Thank you. Just,
You're welcome.
Just Mr. on the fence again. Having a look at the comments, Nick B's talking about a Brazil team in 1994 that played a 4-2-2-2. That's a classic FIFA Ultimate Team formation, that one. Vic Sings as a 3-4-1-2, which isn't too far off what we played at Ipswich away, actually, funnily enough. Ryan Jono says, if not a 4-2-3-1, play a 3-5-2. Bring Ozo on for Diaz. Yeah, have a bit more control over the midfield. I think having, two players wider is not quite as controlling. You've got two players covering so much distance. It's crazy, isn't it? And then, a couple of other comments talking about 4-4-2, 4-2-2-2. Callum in our private chat is on his knees begging and desperate to talk about formation. Go on, Cal. What have you got for us, mate?
Well, it was more just that I've saw it on social media post-game, and people were kind of, after watching what Adjiman was like with his feet, people were thinking, if you're going to do a 4-2-3-1, would, rather than putting a Clark out wide, put a Clark in the 10 and maybe put Adjiman out wide and have Adjiman and Brereton Diaz running off Morris's flick-ons and have Clark in beyond to actually link up the play with Travis and maybe an Ozo. But because I just think that if you're going to do two, he likes to drift out wide quite regularly. When you actually watch him, he likes to be come off the shoulder of a centre half, off in between the centre half and the fullback. He's really clever with his runs. So maybe coming off the wide areas might be something that Eustace might consider.
Do you remember that Juventus team that got to the Champions League final a few years
ago?
Which
one you're talking about?
Barcelona in the final, and they played Mario Mandzukic on the wing. And he played that kind of role. Obviously, he's not got the pace or he's not going to run at someone like Adjiman.
He's not an Adjiman.
No, he's not. He's not on Adjiman's level at all. He's nowhere near his level. But what they did do was they'd smack balls out wide, and he'd win the knock-ons, and then they'd have somebody in the middle that was willing to run onto it. I can't remember who exactly that was now, and it's been a while. But I remember, because Football Manager made that wide target man position because of that. They made that wide target man position simply because of that. It's potential. It could happen. I mean, it does feel a little bit square peg, round holes, that, but you never know. It could be an option. It could be an option. But we've talked about him a little bit already, Adam. Ben Brereton Diaz. Now, I don't think he had a fantastic game yesterday. It does kind of feel a little bit like he doesn't really know what his role is. He doesn't really know whether he's supposed to be going down the wing, whether he's going inside. I did notice that Preston used the same system that we used last season, which I thought was quite interesting. The three central midfield, scrapping, winning the ball, occasionally having moments of quality. The two front men, you've got one that's really quick and will run off and dob in, and then they've got Zmajic, who is obviously the big lad to hold the ball up and win the knock-ons. Do you think the system didn't really help Brereton Diaz yesterday? And what have you made of him so far? I mean, that one where we were 3v1 and he messed up. He shot. I wanted to kill him in that moment. He a pass side, and he.
I'm not surprised he shot in that situation. I think
I'm not
going to be selfish, and I mean it's frustrating because I think maybe 10 games down the line he'll probably lay that off. Knowing he's in a better scenario if he plays the ball, but I think he's had a tough start. I think that international break came about, I think, just after we'd signed him, hadn't it? And then I don't know whether I saw a few reports that he didn't have a great game for Chile in one of their losses, and then he's straight into the team away at West Brom, where I think he had a few touches, not many. I think the one moment for me that sticks out of him away at West Brom was a ball was played long. He starts running and then just stops and allows it just to roll out. And that was a little bit frustrating, but I understand it probably not going to come of anything. But in his first game, I'd probably have expected him just to attempt to jog after it, maybe a little bit. And then I think against Preston, he struggled. I think he just didn't look like he had the ability to beat the man. Now, maybe in a couple of games' time, he will have that. And as I mentioned earlier on, I was told he was a confidence player. He's somebody that needs to have a goal in him before the game, and then his game sort of raises. So I think playing him in the first two matches, we've not seen the best of Diaz for sure. I think maybe bringing him off the bench, but it also falls down to we probably had to play him based on the fact that Wyman can't do a 90 minutes and looks better off the bench, and the fact that Adjiman isn't fully fit yet. So I think, we've not seen the best of him. He didn't have a great game. I think we're stuck between, like, we need a little bit more, I don't know, commitment, or whether his pace isn't there yet. But as I mentioned, I think can't really criticise him 2 games in, but I think we've expected him to hit the ground running, and he's not done that. But when you look at the context of the fact that he's not had a great time at Southampton, he wasn't amazing for Sheffield United last season, probably why they didn't look to bring him back in on loan. And the fact that he's had probably not the best game for Chile. I think that it's going to take him a couple of games to get up to speed, and probably just comes down to that age-old saying it'll take a couple of games for the team to gel. But still frustrating. You want a player to be able to hit the ground run. The fact that the results haven't really been there, and attacking-wise, we've been so limited to any chances. But I think he's a player who'll still come good. But these early games, I am surprised how long he actually got on the pitch. I have to say, I think he should have been pulled off a little bit sooner because, that second half became very jaded, and he was one of the players who definitely looked to be tiring.
He works hard though, doesn't he, Cal? Like he genuinely grafts. He does work really hard. It's just not working for him at the minute.
No, I mean, there was two passes that he did. One was for Bobby Clark, and I think he was just straight offside. That he can pick out a good pass. So he's a great interlink player. We know what he can do when he was at Blackburn a few years ago, and appreciates a few years ago. But he's not old, or he's not one of those that's like, oh, it's back when he was in his early 20s or anything like that. It's like it's only like 2 or 3 seasons ago where he was lighting up the Championship, and everyone's thinking he's going straight for the Premier League. And I think it's just going to be a case of being patient with him. I think I agree with Adam that I would not have started him yesterday, and I would have brought him off earlier yesterday. But I think at the moment with Brewster out, he might be just with hands tied, looking at what options we've got. We've got Vyman, and then you're looking at Caden Jackson, aren't you? Is the next up, and Salverson would just throw in on, just try and get a result. But he wouldn't play in that position. So I think it's just kind of needs must. He kind of fills that area that we're needing in terms of a wide forward just to play off Morris while we're waiting for Adjiman to get up to scratch, and Vyman's never going to really play a full 90, is he? So I think Eustace has just got his hands tied at the moment.
Did you find it a bit bizarre, Adam, that we finished the game with 3 number 9s on the pitch?
I think that's the first time, isn't it?
Yeah, you talked about that. That link between the defence and the midfield and the attack, and the fact that we had very little link between the midfield and the attack. And yet still we finished the game with 3 out-and-out strikers on the pitch. It didn't seem to make too much sense. I think it was just hopeful that a ball would fall to one of them and they'd be able to finish it. I mean, you look to the bench, and in terms of the midfielders we had available, it's David Ozo who can play in the centre of the midfield, and then, correct me if I'm wrong. Well, yeah, but he's a forward, isn't he? Not a midfielder. So allegedly, one midfielder. You
got Thompson. He wasn't on the bench. No, he wasn't on the bench. That's what I'm saying. So that's what I mean. Yeah, so not many options at the moment.
It doesn't surprise me, but it was strange that we've then brought on 3 players with the exact same in terms of their playing styles, with tall players who can good in the air and can win the ball down. But it kind of made sense with how many balls we put into the box, apart from that one corner which flew over everyone and went out for a goal kick. That was so frustrating, but probably just summed up the day, really. I think it was just more of hopeful, get players on and hope that an opportunity falls to them. But I think we also could have brought them substitutions on a little bit earlier, because there was probably 10 to 15 minutes where the game looked just really stretched and really tired. But it was one of them. I think that game could have played for another 90 minutes and we wouldn't have scored, truth be told. Yeah, you're right. And Derby look next week to Hollywood FC, Wrexham.
Yeah.
We're going to have to say something really controversial now to try and get on the documentary, by the way. That's going to be the goal for the next 2 or 3 minutes. I mean, Wrexham haven't had a great start, have they? They've been very up and down. They don't seem fantastic defensively, but they haven't on their entire journey up. But what they can do is score quite a few goals. So they're quite dangerous going forward. So, yeah, I don't really know what to expect. What do I say now? Wrexham are rubbish. We'll batter them 40-0. That's the sort of thing you got to say. Cal, how do you see it going? And let's have a score prediction, please.
Well, the only American that is going to be any importance of that game is going to be Patrick Adjiman. I think Mac O'Henny's and you know what I mean? It's not going to be a talk about them. It's going to be talking about Adjiman. I think he's going to score. I think he will get off the mark. I just don't think he'll start, though. I think we're still going to wait for that. I think we're going to be patient with him because of what ability he has. We can't ruin him, and if anything happens to him, then we're then going to be looking at what we've got next. So yeah, I'm going to go. Do you want score predictions now?
Go on, give me a quick score prediction.
I'll go 2-1. I think we're going to still concede, but I'll go Ajimang and Morris.
Great stuff. Yeah, Patrick Ajimang will definitely be the biggest American there that day. Adam, let's have a score prediction and goal scorer.
I'm going to go 2-2. I think we'll stick with the same formation, unfortunately. But I'll say 2-2. Vyman and Ajimang. Yeah, that's what I think is going to score.
Great stuff. I think it's going to be a 2-2 as well. And Vic in the comments says 2-2. Jim says it's going to be 4-0. Blimey, 4-0.
Wow.
That's unbelievable, that is. But yeah, I think 2-2. I think Ajimang will get off the mark and celebrate in front of Ryan Reynolds. He'll shush Ryan Reynolds and kiss the American flag on his chest or something ridiculous.
That's go get an American flag. Someone take it in the crowd.
Yeah, I know. We'll need it. And yeah, I think we'll get a rogue goal scorer. Give us a Sanderson bullet header or something like that, which will be nice. So, thank you so much for listening. If you did enjoy, please do leave a like, subscribe. It's been very fun today when my internet's decided to work, which sometimes it doesn't. So yeah, please do leave a like, please do subscribe. Let us know your thoughts in the comments. And it has been a pleasure. Right, on to bigger things, on to better things. Let's win some games. That would be nice. It is goodbye from me.
Let's hope for a good result with Wrexham. Goodbye from me.
Ajimang is the only American we need to know. Goodbye from me.
I love it. Up the Rams. We'll see you soon. Thank you for everyone commenting. Goodbye.